Hello and welcome. This is Social Studies, Voices Across America. I'm Bill Wood.
And I'm Peter Goldsmith.
Peter, this is one of the biggest weekends of the year. If you're a sports fan, Super Bowl weekend is happening this Sunday. It's going to be a big show, the Rams and the Patriots.
Bill, I am super excited. Number one, I love the Super Bowl for all the theater that it presents. Yep. And number two, after 18 years of good service, my old television set has died. And last week, we got a new 4K, big screen, sort of yada, yada TV. So I can enjoy my Super Bowl and my wife can enjoy her Super Bowl commercials. So I'm a happy man.
That reminds me of the commercial where a guy walks into a TV store and says, I haven't purchased a TV in 15 years. Has anything changed?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, this new one is great. It's wonderful. It's bright. It's beautiful. And we'll see. We'll see on Sunday.
Yeah. So you have to watch Super Bowl Sunday, even if you're not a sports fan, because it's part of the culture now. It's part of what you talk about at the water cooler. It's whether you want the commercials, whether you want the game, whether you want all the paraphernalia that's going on around it, the drama. Almost every game, especially in the last 10, 15 years, almost every game has had drama in the way it's ended. Last year, was it 2 years ago, the Patriots and who was it that had Falcons. the Falcons had the overtime. Right. And, that was the only overtime. The Falcons were up by over 20 points, and the Patriots came back. And the biggest thing probably in the culture now, especially for sports fans who are sick and tired of New England winning. This is their third straight trip, and they've won, I think, like 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls, some incredible number, 2 of the last 3, and they're favored to win again. Somebody, including me, I'm right teetering on the edge. I used to be a person who loved excellence, and I wanted to see them win and keep winning and love the dynasty and say I was a part of it, I saw it. But now it's starting to wear thin, quite thin.
Well, Bill, first of all, I'm glad to hear you talking about football, because I think that football has become a secondary elaboration on Super Bowl Sunday. First of all, as you know, and I think you were the one who told me this, it's the second most food day after Thanksgiving in the United States. It's commercials which are averaging this year about $5 million for a 30-second spot. It is the biggest gambling day of the year by far, and we'll get into that later. And so I hope we see a good game, because it really is about the game, or it's supposed to be about the game.
It's supposed to be about the game. That is the key issue. There's the gambling has become the main thing, and they're saying 1 in 10 Americans is going to place a bet on the game. Maybe it's just between, the people in the house at the party watching the game, or maybe you're calling a bookie, maybe you're in Vegas, maybe you're going online to bet offline. But 1 in 10 Americans, that's over 30 million people, are placing a bet, and $6 billion with a B, $6 billion is going to be bet this weekend. Were you able to get a bet down?
Well, first of all, I'll get to my betting habits in a minute. But $6 billion is going to be bet in the United States.
Oh,
this is right. Broadcast to 80 other countries. So we may see as much as $10 billion bet. What's interesting about that is 5.3% of that $6 billion is legal. The other 94.3% is illegal. And as you and I discussed earlier, there are 440 that I came across, what they call prop bets that you can bet on the Super Bowl. And they range from the ridiculous to the sublime. I mean, you had one that you told me, what's the favorite color of the Gatorade that's going to be dumped on the winning coach? And I think you told me that it was green or something that was going to
Yeah.
win. Yeah,
Lime green and yellow. I think that's the classic Gatorade colors.
yeah, yeah.
That's the leader in the clubhouse. The one that got me was the Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
Whether or not Bitcoin was going to go up or down after the game was over. I mean, that's who thinks this stuff up?
Well, Bill, one of the highlights of this Super Bowl for me and probably most people is the singing of the national anthem. We love the national anthem. It's wonderful to see the jets fly over and the colors and all that stuff. But this year's performer is the great Gladys Knight, who is a superstar in her own right, at least a superstar. And there's a prop bet. Will Gladys Knight sing the national anthem in over or under 1 minute and 47 seconds?
Yeah, and then there's another prop bet. Is she going to wear a gown, a dress, a skirt, or pants? And what color each one is going to be? These are all people are betting on. You got to be a degenerate gambler to bet on what color Gladys Knight's pants are going to be.
Well, I was thinking that I would like to get together $440 and bet $1 on each one of these prop bets and see how I come out at the end of the Super Bowl.
Here's one. Will Gladys Knight forget or omit a word from the national anthem?
Right.
Gladys Knight, I mean, she heard it through the grapevine. She couldn't possibly forget one of the words.
Well, here's the problem with that bet, though. So in other words, now not only are you rooting, if you say she will, not only are you rooting against Gladys Knight, but you're rooting against the national anthem. So what kind of deviant are you anyway? You know what I mean? But I mean, this stuff is just part of it. It's just like, it's as a matter of fact, 31% of men, and I'm going to look at here, I think it's 31.6% of men and 27.3% of women have a yearly Super Bowl ritual, which they call a Super Bowl ritual. So I think it's more than a football game.
It is more than a football game. I think we mentioned earlier that outside of Thanksgiving, more food is consumed on this day, and there might be some question whether or not it's food. When you talk about nachos and chips,
wings is the number one food on the
wings. Oh, I could do some damage to some wings. I know you're a vegan, but I can sit down. I could do some damage to some wings. So I know what that's about. It's almost embarrassing.
The rating last year was 111. I can't see it right now. 111 point something million people watched the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Okay. Well, that's just basically about 1 in every 3 Americans watch the Super Bowl. And considering many Americans are over the age of 90 without TVs, and many of them are under the age of 3 who have no idea what a TV is anyway, think about the massive numbers that includes. But here's one good statistic. More women have watched the Super Bowl in the last 2 years than ever before. So it's still fairly male dominant, but women are really catching up in male madness and getting involved in this. I had a dear friend, she passed away a while ago, who was our Super Bowl guru. She was a statistician who would tell you before the game almost everything that was going to happen. And all of us, men, women, children, would call her the day of in the morning and say, "Hey, Geraldine, what do you think is going to happen here?" And you know what? She was right about 70% of the time. She was pretty great. But women are getting involved, and men too. And I think it's an interesting phenomenon that something like this, you go back to the first Super Bowl, which was a game between the two leagues. At that point, it wasn't the National Football League. We had the American Football League and the National.
And it wasn't called the Super Bowl at the time. It was just the national championship of pro football. It was that was the, I think.
Yeah, that was back in 1967. It was Green Bay Packers versus Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And Packers won. They were the NFL team they were supposed to win. It wasn't until 1969 with the great Joe Namath game where he promised to win that the New York Jets, which is the last game they've ever won in the last 60 years, actually beat the Colts. I think it was 16-7, and put the AFL on a par with the NFL and subsequently their merger.
I remember I was in college and I had a part-time job cleaning an elementary school, and I didn't have a TV. Or the TV I had, I think it was either not working or I didn't have a TV. And I had a key to the school. So I went to the school, opened up the school, and got a bunch of food, laid it out on one of the tables, got a chair, put my feet up on the table, and watched one of the great games up to that point that I'd ever seen. I was
Yeah.
cheering and screaming and throwing bones and eating pizza and chicken and fries, I had a ball all by myself. And I would bet you that there's a lot of people who think the same way this Sunday. Some of us will be at a party, but I think some of us are too intense in their love of football to get involved in all of the shenanigans at a party where people are talking and all you want to do is watch a game.
Right. You're right. You're right, Bill. And I've been, as we all have been over the years, to several Super Bowl parties where you just want to say, shut up, especially if it's your team. Like, if you don't have a rooting interest in the game, which I really don't. I mean, to be candid and honest, I might as well say it right now. I'm rooting for the Rams. My grandson and my kids live in LA. So I'm rooting for the LA Rams. If I were a betting man, which you asked me for, but I'm really not, I would, it's a 2.5 point spread. The Patriots are favored by 2.5. The Patriots are a wonderful team. In my opinion, Tom Brady is by far and away the greatest quarterback of all time. Statistics to prove it. Bill Belichick is certainly, if not the greatest, certainly in the pantheon of 3 or 4 greatest coaches of all time.
But I have to disagree with you. I don't think Belichick is the greatest coach. I actually have little respect for Belichick.
I know why.
Because he was with my Cleveland Browns and he was a loser with the Browns. He was fired. He went to New England, and this is a stat that few people want to talk about. He was 4-17 in his second year with the Patriots when Drew Bledsoe got hurt, and Tom Brady came in and led the team to the Super Bowl win in his second year. He's never been to the playoffs without Brady. So all of this stuff that how great he is and blah blah, I think their success is all Tom Brady.
Well, you can say that if you like, and I know you're a Belichick hater.
I am. I will admit to that.
Hey, you know what? That's what sports is fun. You can, that's the fun of it. However, the guy's got 5 Super Bowl rings, and he got a couple with the Giants under Bill Parcells. So let me just read a statistic here, which I think will be very fun for you to hear. This comes from the Sporting News. Okay. Cleveland is the only NFL city that has neither hosted nor had its team play in the great Super Bowl.
Now, I believe no one knows that better than me. My Browns, Ernest Biner, playing the Denver Broncos, that last-minute drive down the field, he cuts into the end zone and leaves the ball on the 2. Fumbles the ball at the 2 when the Browns were getting ready to go in for the winning touchdown that would put them in the Super Bowl. Now, there is one thing. I know we have some stuff going on, but I do have here, you can see that I've got a Cleveland Browns mug for Super Bowl 21. There it is. So when people say the Browns have never been to the Super Bowl, I say, here's my proof.
Yeah, by holding up a mug.
By holding up a mug, yeah, right. It was something that a friend of mine who was doing a story for the TV station that I worked at, she was doing a story on the Final Four teams and a company in Los Angeles, Southern California, that made all the memorabilia. I forget the other 3 teams in that Final Four, but she knew that I was a Cleveland Browns fan, and she brought the mug back for me and said, here, this might be the only way your team is going to get there.
You know, Bill, what's great about what you were saying is you keep saying my Browns. And of course, I always say, my G-men.
Yeah.
The beauty of sports is we really do root, as you always put it, for the laundry.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're rooting for, in my case, we build Big Blue or whatever they're called and so on and so on. We as fans really kind of lose ourselves for 3 hours or 3.5 hours, whatever a game is, and we're totally committed to our team. It will have no effect, unless we're big bettors. It'll have no effect on our lives. But boy, it sure is great to be able to sit there and, we talk about stress reduction and things of that nature with Barbara that people have seen in a little while. What a great way to just, micromanage your 3 hours, wondering if, in my case, Eli is good for another score, or in your case, if Johnny Manziel is going to hold up, and so forth and so on. But that's, I think, part of
not Manziel, Baker Mayfield.
I'm sorry, Baker Mayfield. You're right.
Not Manziel. Manziel was
he's gone, right? He was there a few years ago.
He's out of football. Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry, Baker Mayfield, who I happen to actually like, actually.
My first memory of my dad in the sports reality was him pounding on the floor in front of the TV, and I was like 5, 6 years old. And I'm running, what's wrong? What's wrong? And all he could do was just point at the TV and shake his hand. The Browns lost to the Chicago Cardinals, who went to St. Louis and then Phoenix. But they're my Browns. From that moment, they've been my Browns.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about the Giants. And the reason I feel that way is when I was 12 years old, my mother bought a pair of Seasons Giant tickets, which, by the way, were $7 a ticket at the time, to the Giants. And being the oldest son, my dad and I went to every game, which we did all the way through until I went to college. So it was a ritual for us to put on our heavy coats together, and for my dad to stick sandwiches and chocolate bars down in his pockets so he'd have something to eat, and take a big piece of cardboard, because when you go to cold weather games and you're sitting on concrete, if you can put a piece of that corrugated cardboard under your feet, it'll keep it a little warmer. Yeah. So Dad had full pockets, a cardboard under his hand, a hat and everything, and here we were ready to go. And my dad always would be, the most fun of the day was, hopefully we won. About 5 or 6 minutes into the fourth quarter, my dad go, come on, let's go. Dad, the game is still, no, I don't want to get caught in the parking. I don't want the parking lots for jail. I don't want to get caught in the park. Let's go listen to the radio and we'll catch the rest of the game. So it was kind of that, and we had one game that was really, we laughed, as, when you're a kid, there was no question if we're leaving or not. My father said, we're leaving.
Yeah, right.
And it was snowing and it was terrible, and so forth and so on. And Pat Summerall, later known as a great announcer with John Madden, Pat Summerall kicked a 49-yard field goal in snow. It seems to me it was a snow and a blizzard and all this kind of, maybe it was, but something like that. And we were already on the West Side Highway in New York, listening to this thing on the radio. And I never said a word about it to my dad. Like, Dad, we never a word. So
that was probably the game, because it sounds like a game where Summerall kicked a field goal into the snow at Yankee Stadium, where they used.
That's where it was.
And the referee came running out of the snow blizzard and signaled they beat my Browns, and that was.
Sorry, Bill, I didn't remember that.
That was in 1956. That the Browns were favored to win, and we had 2 tickets to go. The championship game between the East and the West was going to be played in the Eastern City, so it was going to be in Cleveland. And I had 2 tickets. We were going to go to the game. That game ended up being the Giants and the Baltimore Colts in Yankee Stadium. Baltimore won the game in overtime. The first.
No, that's 58. 58.
Was that 58?
That was 58.
They won the game in overtime.
That's right.
And
Amici crossed over from the 1 or 2 yard line in overtime. Absolutely right.
So when you mentioned going to the game, we didn't live in Cleveland. We lived in Columbus. But at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, we'd find a game to go to. We'd drive up to Cleveland, where we had family. We went to Detroit. We drove all the way to Pittsburgh. We went all over the Midwest trying to see the Browns win a game. I was 33 5, I think, before I saw Cleveland win a game when I was there. They came to the Coliseum in Los Angeles, played the Raiders. I'm standing up cheering, and because it was obvious the Browns were going to win, until Raiders fans started throwing things at me. And the guy I was with, he pulled me and said, "Hey, sit down, you're going to get killed." I said, "I don't care. My Browns are going to, I've waited 35 years for this," until finally one, a peanut or a bottle or something whizzed by my ear. And I turned to him and said, "Hey, it's time to go." Yeah. And I went to the peristyle end. It wasn't covered up at that time. And that's where I watched the fourth quarter, standing in the peristyle end, so that I wouldn't get murdered by some crazy Raider fan.
Yeah, I mean, that's the not that, but that's the fun of this stuff. You know, we all have remembrances of seeing certain games, and lucky enough to see our team in the Super Bowl. I mean, the shirt that I have, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Why waste any time? Is my G-men winning Super Bowl 35.
My G-men, yeah, right, there you go.
And if you recall, that was a 2019 victory over your Denver Broncos. Not that they're yours, I'm teasing you.
Yeah.
What I remember most about that game is Bill Parcells, his look on the sideline as that Denver kicker missed that, I think it was a 40-some-odd yard field goal, and the Giants won it by a point. But, I mean, that stuff is just remembered forever. You know, these are moments that we treasure, and they're nice moments because in reality, they don't mean anything. I mean, your team loses or wins, it doesn't really matter, but it's sure nice to see them win.
My favorite team in all of pro football is whoever's playing Denver, because the Broncos kept my Browns out of the Super Bowl 3 out of 4 straight years. The fumble, the year before that was the drive where Elway drove the team in Cleveland's Municipal Stadium, drove them all the way down the field, and beat my Browns.
But Bill, isn't that the real great thing about sports and about this Super Bowl Sunday especially? Yeah. You know, we're going to be – you and I don't really have a rooting team in this thing. We'll pick one. Like I say, I'm going to pick the Rams. I don't know who you're going to pick. And we'll really root hard for that team and get involved with it and have fun. And again, I'm going to watch if I can, I'm going to stay home and try to watch. We've been invited to 2 or 3 Super Bowl parties. But I'm going to call in sick like we used to do when we were in school, so I can watch my new television alone and just call my wife in every time there's a bank of commercials. You know?
Now this is a kind of an aside, but it's the exact same thing you're talking about. Ohio State, my college team, was playing for the national championship. I think they were playing Florida. This was in the 2000s. And a buddy of mine was saying, "Hey, you got to come over." He wasn't having a party. He just wanted to watch the game with me because he knew I was a big Buckeye fan.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to. So what are you going to do? I said, I'm watch the game by myself. And he said, "What do you want to buy?" I said, "That's the way I do it." And so I finally relented. He kept nagging me. So I said, "I'll come on one condition, that if I get up and walk out of the house, you won't try to stop me." And he said, "What?" I said, "If my Buckeyes start losing, I'll get up and leave."
Oh yeah.
And I'm not going to let you ride me. And he laughed so hard he dropped the phone. He literally had to pick up the phone. He said, "You're serious?" I said, "I'm dead serious. If I get up and walk out of the house, don't try to stop me, because I'm in a different place."
It could get ugly.
It could get ugly. The statute of limitations may not run out on that.
Oh yeah.
So he finally he called back, and I don't know if he was kidding or not, but he finally said, "Look, I'm out shopping with my wife, so I'm not going to be at home. You did win after all." And I was happy. I went in the kitchen, I warmed up some soup, I made a sandwich, and I laid it out on the table, and I just cheered for my Buckeyes to get a national championship. I couldn't have been happier.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Bill. I got an offer for you.
Okay.
And if you don't believe this one, I got a bridge I'll sell you too.
Right.
But no, I'll tell you what I'll do. I have never been to a Cleveland Browns game in Cleveland, and I'd like to. So I'll bet you on this Super Bowl. Okay. You take who you want. I'll take one. And I'll come and visit you because I've never even been to Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And we'll go to a Cleveland game together. If I win the bet, you buy the tickets. If you win the bet, you get the tickets. You pay for them. If I win, you pay. If I lose, I pay you back the money for the game. Fair bet?
All right, that's fair. Now you took the Rams.
I was going
to take the Rams, but
I'll take the
I'll take the New England. I'll take New England.
And you're going to give me 2.5.
And I'll give you 2.5.
I'm really excited to see, and I will take my Sean McVay led Todd Gurley Jr. or second, whatever his name is, Rams against your lowly Belichick and Brady Patriots. We got to get into trash. Bill, we got to get into trash talking. That's the fun of it. I'd like to see what happens and see. The final spread will be pretty close to 2.5. Might go a half point either way. But it'll just be interesting to see how close the odds makers get to this.
Now, to show how much of a gambler I am, the 2.5 means that the Rams are going to start with a 2.5 points, and I have to win by more than 2.5 to win the bet. Right?
Correct.
Now here I am ginning up to cheer for the Patriots. But yeah, I have a Rams. I should have bought this out. I've got a Rams. It's like a TV blanket that I've had since I was a sports producer at a TV station in Los Angeles. They sent around a catalog, and we could pick out whatever gift we wanted for Christmas. And I picked out that blanket. That blanket is probably since the mid-'70s. So that blanket is how old now? That's over 30, say 70.
40 years old.
40 years old.
Yeah, but Bill, I don't want to bust your balloon or anything. But since you're rooting for the Patriots, I will say, I hope the FCC knows how much that blanket costs. Because back in those days, when I was producing television in New York, it was a $25 limit. So if
the CBS Blue Book, the CBS Blue Book would have knocked me out of the box. I'd have done 2 weeks without pay.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah.
That's the great line, Peter. I haven't thought about that in 40 years.
Oh yeah.
This has been fun.
Oh yeah, it's been great.
So you're taking the Rams 2.5. I'm taking New England against my better judgment, but I'm taking New England. And the bet is that we're going to a Browns game in Cleveland, and either I buy the tickets or you buy the tickets.
Exactly right.
All right.
I drive up to your place in Columbus.
All right, there you go.
They're great.
Or why don't we do it where if the Rams win, I come to North Carolina. We go to a Panthers game in Charlotte. You want to do it that way?
No. You know what you feel about Denver? That's what I feel about the Panthers.
Okay.
I'm a Giant fan. I'm not a Panthers fan. No.
All right. Maybe we could find a game.
Oh, we could go to Pittsburgh. I love the Steelers.
We find the Giants and the Browns play at that weekend. That would be cool. I remember
really cool
going to Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and I think the Giants beat my Browns 49-0. And the big play of the game was a defensive back named E. Rich Barnes.
Number 49.
Intercepted the ball and ran the last 49 yards into the end zone, holding the ball in the air. It was like clouds parted, and he just ran into the end zone.
And he was the last good defensive back the Giants ever had. Eric Barnes, number 49. I loved him. Loved him.
Yeah. So, wow. That's some good memories, dude.
Totally.
Totally. My squad and your squad, it's amazing. Everybody's going to have that, and they're going to dress up this weekend. And it's the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl Sunday in America. Until the next time, partner, take care of each other and respect each other. Hope your team wins in the Super Bowl this weekend.
Me too, my brother. Peace.
Before we get away, Peter, you mentioned this earlier, our conversation with Barbara Bijou, barbarabijou.com. She's a spiritual teacher, and part of her specialty is using rituals to alleviate all sorts of problems, including stress. Here's an example of that conversation that we'll have later on Social Studies, Voices Across America.
First of all, I start very simply by teaching people like a simple technique to just calm down. So I'll teach you my favorite one. I might have taught you, I don't know. It's super simple. I teach it in corporations. It doesn't matter. So if something suddenly is pushing your button and you're getting nervous, so what I have people do is you make circles in the palm of your hand, very simply, while silently counting like 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, 90. That took about 6 seconds. And what it did is it brought you back to your center.
You can get this podcast. You can tell someone else about this podcast. It's available through YouTube, through iTunes, and through Google Play. Let's hear from you. Let us know what you think so that we can be in community with you. And there is a way to contact us. That's at peter@agnetuslife.com or bill@agnetuslife.com. That's our email addresses. Let's hear from you. Let's open up the forum.